Hello, my friend. Or perhaps I should say, hi there, weary traveler. Or even good evening, my companion in curiosity. Whichever greeting settles most gently on your ear, take it as a quiet invitation, because tonight we are not rushing. Tonight we are not here for noise or haste. Tonight we will wander slowly, hand in hand with time, until sleep itself finds you. So, let me ask you something simple. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to open your eyes? Not in your own bed, not in the safety of sheets and electric hum, but in another life, in another century. What would it be like to wake, not as yourself, but as someone long forgotten, not a king, not a knight, not a noble, but a peasant, a medieval peasant? It is so easy, when we hear the word medieval, to think of stone castles perched above the mist, banners fluttering, the clash of steel, and the roar of tournaments. But beneath those castles, far below the banners, stretched a world of soil and smoke. And most people, perhaps 90 and 100, lived not in grandeur, but in that world of toil. Theirs was the steady drumbeat of existence, the furrows in the field, the smoke in the thatch, the prayers in the cold morning light. And so, imagine that one night, you close your eyes in your familiar bed, and when you open them again, you are not you. You are lying on a lumpy straw mattress, in a hut of timber and mud. The roof above you breathes faintly with the smell of smoke and damp reeds. A chicken scratches somewhere near your feet, for animals live where you live. And your body, your new, strange body, aches in ways you don't yet understand. Because you have woken as a medieval peasant. The story we will wander through tonight is not quick. It cannot be quick. Because peasant life was not quick. It was slow, deliberate, and shaped by rhythms older than memory. There will be the rhythm of the bell that tolls from the church tower, the rhythm of the plow pulled through stubborn earth, the rhythm of hunger and brief satiety, of winter's bite and summer's reprieve. We will follow those rhythms together, step by step, until they feel like your own heartbeat. But before we walk out into the fields, let me draw you deeper into that room where you have just awoken. The straw mattress beneath you is rough, and it smells faintly of mold and old sweat, because bedding is rarely washed. Your blanket is a coarse wool, scratchy against the skin, heavy in its warmth. If you are lucky, it has not been eaten through by moths. The walls lean slightly inward, as if weary from holding up the roof, and there are gaps where the wind sneaks its fingers inside. When you take your first breath, it is of smoke, always smoke, because fires burn low through the night, and huts are small, and chimneys are a luxury. The smoke curls upward, searching for cracks, and fills your lungs before it ever escapes. You cough softly, the way everyone coughs, because smoke is a companion as constant as the air. Now, perhaps you roll to your side. Perhaps your elbow knocks against another body, or several, for you are not alone in this hut. You share it most likely with your family. Parents, children, siblings. Privacy is not a word here. You live as one tangled knot of bodies, breathing each other's breath, hearing each other's snores and murmurs. Even the animals, pigs, chickens, sometimes a goat, share the same space. Their warmth is a blessing in the winter. Their noise is part of the lullaby of life. And when the first gray light of dawn seeps through the cracks, you rise. Not because you want to, but because life insists. There is no choice, only the certainty of work waiting beyond the door. But before we step outside, pause with me for a moment longer. Listen, in your mind's ear, to the sounds within this hut. The shifting straw, the coo of a pigeon outside the eaves, the thin cry of a baby already hungry, the creak of old wood underfoot. These are the sounds of your new life. They are gentle, but they are unyielding. They will accompany you every day, for as long as you live. And now, let us ask ourselves, what does it mean to live as a medieval peasant? Not in stories, not in textbooks, but in the rhythm of a day. What does hunger feel like when it is constant? What does labor feel like when it begins at sunrise and only ends when darkness swallows the fields? What does faith feel like when the church's bell is the one clock of your life, the one anchor in a world without timepieces? We will not rush toward the answers. We will let them reveal themselves slowly, like the unfolding of dawn. For the life of a peasant was never rushed. It was bound, tethered, pulled along by the seasons, and so our journey must be the same. So I invite you rest back. Even as we walk forward, imagine the rough wool at your throat. Imagine the cold earth beneath your feet. Imagine the smell of damp hay and the faint taste of last night's broth still lingering. And know this, from this moment until the tale is told, you are no longer yourself. You are one of them. You are a medieval peasant, and together we will live this day. The light that wakes you is not the kind you know, not the bright insistence of electric bulbs or the crisp slant of blinds, but a softer, more uncertain thing. It seeps rather than shines, filtered through the cracks in wooden slats and the ragged weave of wool stuffed into gaps. It is a pale gray, not yet day, not yet night, a kind of in-between that belongs to peasants and roosters, to those who must rise before the sun claims the sky. You stir beneath the heavy woolen blanket, rough and scratchy against your skin, and you realize there is no indulgence in lying still. The world outside waits, not with patience, but with expectation. You swing your legs down, bare feet finding the packed dirt floor. It is cold, the kind of cold that bites but does not surprise, for it has always been there, seeping up from the earth that supports you and swallows you in the same breath. Around you, the shapes of your family stir as well, shadows shifting in the dimness, the sound of a cough, the rustle of straw. There are no doors between you and them, no walls to separate, only bodies and breath. The air smells faintly of smoke, of last night's fire gone to ash, of wool unwashed, of animals breathing in the corner. This is your first breath of the day, and it tastes of survival. You reach for the tunic at your side. It is not clean, not in the way you are used to. It has absorbed the sweat of yesterday and the day before, and the scent of smoke clings to its fibers, but it is warm, and it is yours. The fabric is coarse against your skin, woven from wool sheared and spun by hands you know, perhaps even your own. There is a belt of rope or leather to bind it at your waist, not for style, but to keep it from flapping as you move. Trousers, if you have them, are patched, worn thin at the knees, the fabric softened by years of earth and labor. Shoes, if you are fortunate, are little more than leather wrapped and stitched, stiff until softened by mud. You clothe yourself in work, for that is what clothing is here. Outside, a sound rises the first rooster's crow. It cuts through the dawn, insistent, declaring what everyone already knows. The day has begun. You push open the door, if door is the right word for a wooden plank that groans on crude hinges, and you step into the world that owns you. The morning air is damp, heavy with mist. It smells of soil that has never rested, of dung spread thick to coax reluctant crops, of smoke from the night fires rising lazily from other huts. The village around you stirs as yours does. A child runs barefoot across the lane, chasing a chicken that does not want to be caught. A woman bends at the well, her hands already red from the cold water. A man sharpens his plowshare with steady strokes, the rasp of metal on stone like the heartbeat of the morning. And above it all, the church bell tolls. Its voice is not urgent, but it is final. It calls you not just to prayer, but to order, to the rhythm that shapes every peasant's life. You look at the fields stretched beyond the huts. They wait, silent and endless, their furrows like scars across the land. Each furrow is a reminder that survival is carved out, not given. The soil is stubborn, heavy with clay, or thin with sand, depending on where you live. It does not yield easily. You must coax it, break it, beg it to give you enough grain to last the winter. This is not gardening, not hobby, not pastime. This is survival etched into earth, and you are its instrument. Your stomach growls, but there is no feast waiting. Breakfast is what remains of last night's bread, hard by morning, dipped into ale that is more sour than sweet, or perhaps into thin broth if you were fortunate enough to have some left. The bread is coarse, flecked with bits of husk, heavy in your hand. It does not taste like indulgence. It tastes like fuel. You chew, you swallow, and you keep moving, because the fields demand it. The tools you carry are simple, but each has a weight far greater than wood or iron. A plow, if the village owns one, is shared, its blade worn dull by countless furrows. Oxen, If you are lucky enough to have them, move slowly, their ribs showing beneath their hide, their strength both a blessing and a fragile thing. More often, it is your own body that pulls, your own hands that dig, your own back that bends. You feel the strain before you even begin, because work here is not occasional, it is constant, and it has already shaped your body into something you would not recognize in the mirror. The sun rises slowly, pulling itself over the horizon, and with it, the day sharpens. The mist thins, the soil grows visible, the world awakens. Your hands find the plow, or the hoe, or the rake, and the first motion begins: a push, a pull, a lift, a drop. The rhythm sets in, steady, unrelenting, like the ticking of a clock you cannot escape. This is the rhythm of your life now. The earth resists you, as it always does, and your body answers, as it always must. Around you, others move in the same rhythm. Men, women, children, all bending, pulling, carrying. There is no age too young, no age too old. Only degrees of usefulness. A child of 5 scatters seed with small, clumsy hands. A woman with an infant tied to her back bends low to pull weeds, the baby crying against her shoulders. An old man, bent double, still swings a hoe, his face carved with lines of labor. You see them all, and you realize, this is the village's heartbeat. Not one of you can stop, because if one stops, all suffer. Survival is not individual, it is communal. And yet, it is relentless. The hours pass, though you do not count them. You do not wear a watch. You measure time by the sun's climb, by the growl of your stomach, by the tolling of the bell. The earth clings to your boots, mud sucking at every step, hands blistering around the wood of your tools. Sweat gathers at your brow, trickles down your back, mixes with the ever-present smoke that clings to your clothes. You pause, only briefly, to wipe your face with your sleeve. Before the rhythm insists you continue. There is no question of stopping. Hunger does not wait. Winter does not forgive. And so you work, body bending like the stalks you pray will grow, spirit tied to the land that both sustains and consumes you. You glance up at the sky, not to admire it, but to read it. Clouds mean rain. Rain means delay, or perhaps blessing, depending on when it falls. The sky is not decoration, it is prophecy. And yet, in the midst of this unrelenting labor, there are moments small, fleeting when the world feels almost gentle. A bird lands on the furrow you have just carved, pecking at the worms unearthed. The wind stirs, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers from the hedgerows. A child laughs, the sound high and bright, chasing after a dog that is not working but simply being. These are not luxuries, but they are reminders. Even in a life of toil, there is space for breath. But breath is brief, and soon the rhythm resumes. By the time the sun climbs higher into the sky, your body has already grown heavy with work, though the day is far from finished. The soil clings to your hands, your nails blackened, your back a steady ache that seems to pulse with each breath you take. Sweat dries into salt upon your skin, leaving faint white traces that itch and crack when you move. The morning has stretched into something that feels timeless, and hunger now gnaws at your belly with the insistence of a familiar enemy. Hunger, here, is not an exception. It is a companion that walks beside you, whispering with every step, reminding you that food is never certain. And so, when the bell tolls again from the church, its iron tongue echoing across the fields, you feel not only the call of prayer but the faint promise of pause. Work stops for a moment, and the village breathes together. Tools are set down, oxen shift and snort, glad of rest. The air fills with the sound of feet moving back toward the huts, voices low, some murmuring the Pater Noster, others speaking of nothing at all. You join them because there is no choice. To be part of the village is to move with it, to bend when it bends, to kneel when it kneels. You do not enter the church just yet. First, there is the meal, if it can be called that. Bread again, perhaps dipped into pottage, a thin stew of whatever was left from the night before. Barley, beans, maybe a shred of cabbage, sometimes flavored with a bone boiled, until all that remains is memory. The steam rises faintly, smelling of earth more than of spice, for spices belong to merchants and lords, not to you. You tear the bread, dip it, and chew. It fills your stomach but not your desire. It is enough to silence hunger, though never enough to satisfy it. You learn not to expect satisfaction. Children eat beside you, their faces smudged with dirt, their hair tangled. They chatter, if they still have the energy. Their voices are thin, higher pitched than the drone of adult labor, but even they know the rhythm of this life. They eat quickly, hungrily, for the work will call them again soon. Old ones eat more slowly, their teeth worn down, their hands trembling as they raise the spoon. Each bite is an effort, each swallow a victory. You watch them and know, if you are lucky, this is what awaits you. If not, the grave comes sooner. The bell tolls once more. A lower, heavier sound, and now you rise and walk to the church. It is not a grand cathedral of stone and glass, but a simple structure, perhaps of timber, perhaps of rough-hewn stone, its roof of thatch like your own. And yet, it stands taller, it commands attention, it demands reverence. Inside, the air is cooler, darker, smelling of wax and damp stone. A crucifix hangs before you, and candles flicker weakly, their flames small against the shadows. You kneel because everyone kneels. Your knees find the hard earth floor, worn smooth by generations who have knelt before you. The words of the priest rise and fall, Latin syllables that most cannot understand. But you bow your head anyway, because understanding is not required. Faith is not a matter of words, it is a matter of obedience, of fear, of hope. You pray, not for wealth, not for joy, but for survival. For rain when the fields thirst, for sun when the grain must ripen, for health when sickness creeps through the huts. You pray because not to pray is unthinkable, because in a world where nothing is certain, the church offers the illusion of certainty, and perhaps that illusion is enough. When the service ends, you rise again, your knees stiff, your stomach still half empty. You step back into the light, blinking, and the day resumes its steady pull. The fields wait, and they do not care that you are tired. They do not care that you have prayed. They only care that you bend, that you labor, that you carve life from them with aching hands. The afternoon stretches ahead of you like an endless road. The sun burns hotter now, sweat pooling at the hollow of your neck, dripping down your chest, stinging your eyes. There is no shade in the open fields, only the sky above and the earth below, both unrelenting in their demands. You bend again, your hands blistered anew, the wooden handle of your tool rough and splintering. Each motion is a battle, small and repetitive, but together they consume you. And yet, even here, even in this monotony, the world does not stand still. A shout rises from across the field, someone cursing as an ox stumbles. Laughter follows when the beast shakes itself free of the harness and lumbers toward the stream. A woman hums under her breath, a tune older than memory, carrying over the fields like a fragile thread of beauty. The song is not for performance, it is survival, a way to soften the hours, to weave something human into the endless labor. You catch fragments of it, and for a moment, the weight on your shoulders feels a fraction lighter. Still, the rhythm continues. Hoe, lift, drop, pull, push, wipe. The fields do not care for your thoughts, your feelings, your fatigue. They care only for results. And you, like every peasant before you, learn to give yourself over to that demand. To lose yourself in the rhythm, to let your body move while your mind drifts. Perhaps you think of last winter, when snow lay heavy on the roofs and you wondered if there would be enough grain to last. Perhaps you think of the harvest to come, of whether it will be enough this time. Perhaps you think of nothing at all, the way one thinks when exhaustion erases thought. It is here, in this blur between body and mind, that the true peasant day unfolds. Not in events, not in moments, but in the unbroken stretch of effort, the endless thread of survival woven hour by hour. You are not building wealth. You are not climbing status. You are keeping hunger at bay, one motion at a time. And in this, you are not alone. Every bent back around you, every calloused hand, every blistered palm, they are all tied to yours in silent solidarity. Together, you endure. By the time the sun drifts toward its slow descent, the fields are no lighter, and your body no less burdened. If anything, the ache has deepened, settling into bone and sinew until it feels as though you were born with it, as though pain were simply another limb you carry. The soil clings stubbornly to your boots, each step pulling against you, as if the earth itself resents being disturbed. Sweat has dried into salt across your brow, your lips cracked with thirst, your eyes stinging from the glare of light that reflects off damp furrows. The day has grown long, but not long enough to end. And so you keep moving, not out of will, but out of necessity. This necessity is the thread that binds your life. It is not ambition, not desire, not the hope of climbing to something greater. It is survival, plain and unadorned. And yet, within this survival, you notice small hierarchies even in the soil. The Lord's steward rides past sometimes, his horse's hooves churning mud that you must later tread with your own weary feet. He surveys with sharp eyes, not lifting a tool, not touching the dirt. But his presence alone reminds you that this land is not yours. The sweat that soaks your tunic, the blisters swelling on your palms, the grain that will one day grow here, all of it belongs to another. You labor, and he reaps. And yet, you cannot resent too loudly, for resentment does not fill a stomach, and silence is safer than rebellion. Still, your eyes follow him, and a thought stirs in the back of your mind. What is it like, you wonder, to live without this constant ache, without the soil beneath your nails, without hunger gnawing your belly? What is it like to ride rather than walk, to eat bread white as clouds instead of coarse and dark with husks? The thought does not last long. The weight of your hoe in your hands drags it down, buries it with the weeds you pull. But even buried, the thought lingers, like a seed waiting for rain. You pause for a moment, your back screaming as you straighten. The sky above you has shifted, the blue deepening, the sun sinking toward the western edge. Clouds drift lazily, their edges lit with fire, and a flock of birds cuts across them in jagged formation. Their wings beat freely, carelessly, without the burden of soil or harvest. You watch them longer than you should, until the voice of another worker calls you back. And once again you bend, you lift, you pull. The village itself is alive in the distance, smoke rising from chimneys, voices carrying faintly on the breeze. You hear laughter, sharp and fleeting, perhaps from children now freed from their tasks, chasing one another down the lanes. You hear the ring of metal on metal, the blacksmith pounding out a rhythm older than the church bell. You hear the lowing of cattle, the bleating of sheep, the barking of a restless dog. Each sound reminds you that life here is not only toil, but also community, a tangled web of noise and presence that holds you as much as the soil does. And then, as the light softens, you notice her. A woman walking across the edge of the field, her head covered with a faded scarf, her arms burdened with a basket of kindling. She does not look at you directly, but you see her nonetheless. Her steps are slow, her back bent from years of carrying weight. But there is a steadiness in her gait, a quiet dignity that the dirt cannot erase. Perhaps she is your wife, perhaps she is your neighbor, perhaps she is both. For in a village this small, lives overlap until they are indistinguishable. She pauses briefly, adjusts the basket on her hip, and you wonder if she feels the same ache, the same endless rhythm, the same unspoken yearning. You will not ask. Words are precious, and exhaustion is heavy. But in the glance you exchange, however brief, there is recognition, and that is enough. The steward passes again, his horse kicking up dust. This time he does not pause. He has seen enough. The peasants bend, the fields yield, however reluctantly. His task is to ensure order, and order, for now, is intact. You watch him disappear down the lane, and your shoulders tighten. You do not hate him exactly. Hate requires energy, and energy is spent on the soil. But you feel the line drawn between you, the invisible wall of class that no amount of sweat can climb. It is there, as permanent as the church tower, as enduring as the furrows. Evening comes slowly. The light shifts, the heat eases, shadows lengthen across the field. Your stomach growls again, sharper now, reminding you that food waits, though you do not know in what measure. Bread, again, perhaps a scrap of cheese, if luck is kind. Perhaps nothing more than pottage thinned with water. The thought of it pulls you forward, each motion of your body, another step toward release. The work does not end, but it softens. The tools grow heavier, Not because the earth resists, but because your arms no longer have the strength to lift them. The rhythm falters, and at last, the day's labor draws to its reluctant close. You gather your tools, their wooden handles warm from the day's grip, their iron tips dulled by rock and root. You carry them back toward the village, each step slower than the last, your body weary to the marrow. The air is cooler now, carrying with it the faint scent of hearth fires, the sound of voices rising as families gather once more. Children call to one another, laughter chasing the last light of day. Dogs bark, cows low, the village exhales, and you, one more shadow among shadows, walk the narrow lane, past huts leaning against one another as though they, too, are tired. Smoke curls upward from each thatch roof, drifting lazily into the twilight sky. The church bell tolls once more, its voice softer now, less commanding, more like a lullaby to the village. You listen, and for a moment, you feel held, not safe, not comfortable, but held by routine, by faith, by the rhythm that has carried your ancestors and will carry your children. Inside your hut, the air is thick with smoke, with the smell of stew simmering over the hearth. It is thin, watery, but it warms the room, fills it with promise. Your family gathers, their faces lined with the same fatigue as yours, their eyes reflecting the same endurance. You sit among them, the bowl in your hands warm against your chilled fingers, and you eat, slowly, steadily, without words. The food is plain, but it binds you. Each mouthful is not just sustenance, it is belonging. And when at last the bowl is empty, when the fire burns low, when the children curl against their mothers, when your own body folds into straw once again, you close your eyes. The ache remains, the hunger remains, the rhythm remains. But for a few hours, at least, you will sleep. And tomorrow, you will rise again. Night does not fall in the way you know it. There are no lamps to banish it, no streetlights to tame its edges, no hum of distant electricity softening its weight. Night here is absolute. When the last embers of twilight fade, the world withdraws into shadow, and only the hearth fire, low and sputtering, keeps the dark at bay. Inside your hut, the glow is faint, flickering against the walls of timber and clay, painting everyone in shades of amber and black. The smoke curls upward, seeking release through the thatch, but much of it lingers, thickening the air, stinging your eyes, settling into your lungs. And yet, you do not complain. The fire is your only defense against cold, your only shield against the teeth of winter and the jaws of the unseen. The children fall asleep first, curled against one another like a litter of kittens, their breaths uneven, their small bodies twitching with dreams. Their faces soften in sleep, the dirt of the day smudged across their cheeks, their hair tangled like straw. You watch them for a moment, and you wonder what dreams carry them away. Do they dream of food, of a field heavy with grain? Do they dream of play, of running without the weight of chores pulling at their heels? Or do they, even in sleep, feel the echo of hunger in their bellies, shaping their dreams into shadows? You cannot know, but you hope their dreams are kinder than their days. The adults settle more slowly. Your body is weary, but the ache of labor lingers, making rest elusive. You shift on the straw, adjusting your limbs, trying to find comfort where there is none. The straw pricks your skin, the blanket is heavy with damp, and every movement stirs the animals that share your space. A pig grunts, shifting in its corner. A chicken rustles, wings flapping briefly in the dark. Their presence is both annoyance and necessity. Their warmth bleeds into the hut. Their nearness a small assurance that life surrounds you, that you are not alone in the vast black silence. Outside, the night hums with sounds less comforting. The cry of an owl cuts through the dark, sharp and eerie, as if it carries messages from worlds you cannot see. Farther away, the howl of a wolf drifts across the fields, long and mournful, a reminder that danger prowls just beyond the reach of your fire. Bandits, too, are whispered of, men who care nothing for prayers or bells, who come under cover of darkness to take what little you have. And though they are not here tonight, the possibility lingers, pressing down like a second blanket. You pull the wool closer around your shoulders, not only for warmth, but for reassurance. The darkness shapes your thoughts. In daylight, you labor without pause. your mind consumed by the rhythm of the field. But at night, when your body is stilled, your mind wanders into places it dares not go in the Sunday. You think of mortality, of how close it always hovers. You have seen neighbors cough themselves into graves, seen children waste away from fevers no prayer could banish. You know that tomorrow is never promised. And so, you lie awake for a while, listening to the breathing of those around you, counting it as though each breath were a bead of safety on a rosary. Sleep, when it finally comes, is heavy but fragile. Dreams blur with memories. You see fields again, endless and unyielding, your hands pulling and pulling with no end. You see the face of the steward, his horse casting a shadow over your bent body. You see bread, so much bread, loaves white and soft, stacked high, but always just beyond your grasp. You reach, but the bread vanishes, leaving only hunger in its place. You wake, your stomach aching, your mouth dry, and for a moment, you do not know if you are awake or still dreaming. The hut is silent, save for the occasional snore, the crackle of a dying ember, the shifting of an animal in straw. The air has grown colder. You pull the blanket tighter, feel the coarse fibers against your skin, smell the lanolin of old wool, the faint sourness of sweat and smoke. You close your eyes again, forcing yourself back into the current of sleep. There is no luxury in lying awake. Tomorrow will demand your strength, and strength is only borrowed from rest. And yet, the night stretches long. Time here is measured not by clocks, but by the distance between one bell and the next, by the fading of stars, by the slow bleed of darkness into light. You wake again and again, never fully sure how much time has passed. Each time, you listen to the hut, to the village, to the silence beyond. Each time, you pray, softly, wordlessly, that the night passes without event, that the walls hold, that the wolves stay in the forest, that bandits find other roads. In the darkest hours, when the fire has died almost to ash, when the hut is cold enough for your breath to mist, when even the animals have gone silent, the night feels eternal. You curl tighter, your body instinctively guarding itself against the chill, and you wonder how many more nights like this lie ahead. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, until the earth itself claims you. You wonder if the rhythm of days and nights ever changes, or if you will live and die in this same cycle: labor, hunger, sleep, darkness. The thought is too heavy, so you push it aside. Better not to think, better to rest, better to endure. At last, a faint change stirs. The air softens, the dark thins, the silence cracks. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows, its voice raw and insistent, dragging the village back from the brink of endless night. You open your eyes, and through the cracks in the wall, you see the first hint of gray, a promise that the world still turns, that another day has arrived. You rise slowly, your body stiff, your head heavy, but you rise nonetheless, because the night has ended and the fields are waiting. The gray of dawn seeps into the hut, long before the fire is stirred back to life, and before you even open your eyes you feel its presence, a softer chill in the air, a shift in the silence. Night has ended, though it never truly felt like it would. The rooster calls again, his ragged cry cutting through the stillness, and this time there is no ignoring it. Around you, bodies stir, a cough here, a murmur there, the creak of straw as children roll against their mothers. You stretch your limbs carefully, as though testing whether they still belong to you, and the ache that answers leaves no doubt. Yes, they are yours, and yes, they are weary, and yes, they must rise again. You sit up slowly, pulling the heavy wool blanket from your shoulders, and the cold greets you with a sharp kiss. The fire in the hearth has burned down to ash, its warmth a faint memory. Someone will need to coax it back to life, blowing on embers, feeding them slivers of kindling until the flame stirs again. You may do it yourself, or perhaps your wife does, or perhaps one of the older children. It does not matter who, only that it must be done. Without fire, there is no warmth, no food, no comfort. The fire is the fragile heart of the hut, and each morning it must be woken like a child. You shuffle across the dirt floor, your bare feet numb against the earth, and open the wooden door with its groan of complaint. The outside air is damp, mist curling low over the fields, beads of dew clinging to every blade of grass. The world feels hushed, as if holding its breath before the day begins in earnest. You step out into it, stretching your back, filling your lungs with the smell of wet earth, wood smoke drifting from other huts, the faint tang of dung from the pens. These smells are not pleasant, not in the way of perfumes or spices, but they are the sense of life itself here. They are the reminder that the village is awake, that survival has not yet abandoned you. The animals greet you next, impatient for their share of the morning. The cow lows softly, her breath steaming in the cool air. The pigs grunt and shuffle in their pen, mud clinging thick to their hides. Chickens cluck and flap, restless until grain is scattered. You tend to them with hands still heavy from sleep, scattering feed, milking udders, gathering eggs if there are any to be found. Each act is small, almost thoughtless, and yet each is vital. The animals are wealth here, living stores of food and labor. Their health is your health, their survival your own. You stroke a cow's flank as you milk her, the hide warm and slick beneath your palm, and for a moment you feel a strange gratitude. She does not know she carries your life in her body, but she does. By the time you return to the hut, the fire has been coaxed back to life, its flames licking higher, casting a glow that makes the shadows retreat once more. A pot hangs above it, filled with water, soon to become thin broth or ale warmed for drinking. Bread is brought out, yesterday's loaf, harder now, its crust unyielding, its flavor as earthy as the soil it grew from. You break it, share it, dip it into the liquid to soften it. This is breakfast. This is how the day begins, not with sweetness or indulgence, but with sustenance, with fuel, with the bare minimum needed to face the hours ahead. Children eat greedily, their fingers grasping, their mouths chewing quickly, as though afraid the food will vanish before their turn. You watch them, and you cannot blame them. Hunger has taught them not to trust the promise of tomorrow. The old ones eat more slowly, their teeth worn down, their hands trembling, each bite a careful labor. You look at them and see both your past and your future. You were once the hungry child, and you will one day be the trembling elder, if you are fortunate enough to live that long. The circle is clear, and you are caught in it. Conversation is sparse. Words are not wasted when every ounce of energy is precious. A nod, a murmur, a glance, these are enough. You all know what must be done, and there is no need to say it aloud. When the food is gone, the bowls are set aside, the fire banked, the tools gathered, the day awaits, as it always does, and you step into it without ceremony. The mist still lingers over the fields, though the sun has begun to pierce it, scattering beams of pale gold across the land. The earth glistens with dew, each droplet sparkling like a jewel, though you do not think of jewels. Jewels belong to kings and merchants. To you, these drops are simply water, a blessing if they soak into the soil, a curse if they flood it. You walk the narrow path toward the fields, tools slung across your back, and you feel the familiar weight settle onto your shoulders, not just the weight of wood and iron, but the weight of expectation, of survival, of history itself pressing down. The church bell tolls again, its voice rolling over the mist, solemn and steady. It is not a call you can ignore. It is the heartbeat of the village, the measure of your life. You bow your head as you walk, whispering a brief prayer, not because you feel piety surging within you, but because not to pray would be dangerous. God watches, the priest watches, the steward watches. Better to murmur the words and move on. Better to bend than to break. The fields stretch before you, waiting. The soil is damp, your boots sinking slightly with each step. You grip your tool, feel the roughness of its handle, and begin again. The rhythm returns: bend, lift, strike, pull. Your muscles protest, but your body knows the pattern, and soon it falls into place. Around you, others do the same, their movements mirroring yours, a silent choreography of necessity. Together, you weave the fabric of the village's survival, thread by thread, motion by motion. And so the morning unfolds, not with drama, not with spectacle, but with the quiet persistence of labor. The mist rises, the sun grows stronger, the soil loosens beneath your efforts. You lose yourself in it, body moving, mind drifting, the rhythm carrying you forward. You think of nothing, or of everything. You think of hunger, of prayer, of the steward's watchful eye, of the bread you will eat tonight, if the day is kind. And all the while, the earth receives your labor, indifferent, unyielding, eternal. The sun by now has grown heavy, its warmth no longer gentle but pressing, pouring down across the fields until the air itself seems to thrum with heat, and you feel it not only on your skin but in your bones, as if the light has seeped inside you. The morning mist has long burned away, leaving the land bare and exposed, every furrow stretching into the horizon like lines carved into a weary face. You work still, because the work does not end. Your arms moving in that rhythm you have inherited. That rhythm you will pass on. Though each movement feels slower now, weighted not only with soil but with the weight of hours already spent. Your tunic clings to your back with sweat, your throat dry despite the ale you swallowed at midday, your hands raw from gripping the handle of your tool, the blisters of yesterday broken into calluses of today. The ache that began in your back has spread into your legs, into your shoulders, until you no longer know where it begins and where it ends, only that it has become part of you, as natural as breath. And yet, even in this exhaustion, you sense the world alive around you, a hum beneath the silence, the movement of others bound to the same earth. A man nearby grunts as he lifts a stone from the furrow, veins rising on his arms, his face set with the same grim determination you feel in yourself. A woman wipes her brow with the edge of her sleeve, the cloth streaked with dirt, her hair plastered with sweat, the infant on her hip fussing until she shifts her weight to rock it into silence, even while her other hand keeps pulling weeds. Children scatter seed clumsily, their laughter faint but still present, like sparks refusing to die in the wind. You see them, and in their laughter you hear something rare. Not joy exactly, but a defiance of weariness, a refusal to be swallowed whole by the monotony. The priest passes among you sometimes, his robes lifted to avoid the mud, his lips moving in prayer, his eyes sharp, as if to remind you that even here, even bent over the soil, God watches. His presence carries both comfort and unease. Comfort, because perhaps his prayers shield you. Perhaps his blessings keep the rains steady and the plagues at bay. Unease, because his voice also carries judgment, and you know that to falter in your faith is to invite not only the wrath of heaven but the suspicion of your neighbors. You bow your head when he nears, whispering, Amen, though the words taste dry in your mouth. Belief, doubt, obedience, they blur together until you no longer know which moves your lips. Later, the steward rides again, his horse tossing its head, the leather reins creaking, his eyes scanning the fields, not with awe at your labor but with calculation, as though measuring whether the yield will satisfy the Lord who waits in comfort far away. He does not dismount, does not touch the soil, but his gaze weighs on you heavier than the sun, reminding you that the grain you coax from the earth is not yours. A portion will feed your family, yes, but much of it will vanish into barns you will never enter, carried away in carts bound for markets you will never see. You labor for life, but you also labor for others, and in this truth lies the quiet bitterness that settles at the edges of your thoughts. You bury it quickly, because bitterness does not fill your stomach either, and speaking it aloud could be dangerous. Still, it lingers like smoke, curling in places you cannot quite reach. As the hours creep forward, you feel hunger again, sharper now, gnawing at your insides, reminding you of the meager bread you ate that morning. Your body craves more, but more will not come until evening. So you endure it, pushing it down, telling yourself to wait, telling yourself to bend again, to lift again, to strike again. Hunger is not an intruder here. It is a companion, familiar as the crow that circles above the fields, waiting for whatever scraps the earth might reveal. Hunger is a shadow you carry with you, and though you despise it, you also know you would be lost without it, for it is hunger that drives your body forward when your mind has grown too tired to care. And in the midst of this long afternoon, when your body is half numb and your thoughts drift like smoke, you notice small things you might otherwise overlook. The way the sun glints off a bead of sweat rolling down your forearm, the way the soil smells richer when turned freshly by the hoe, damp and alive, carrying with it the promise of harvest, even as it resists your every effort. The way a breeze stirs unexpectedly, cool against your face, carrying with it the faint scent of wildflowers from beyond the hedgerows. These moments are not grand, but they are yours, tiny gifts tucked into the monotony, enough to remind you that life, even here, is not without beauty. A murmur passes between workers, low voices sharing fragments of gossip, stories of who was married last week, of whose child fell ill, of which family lost a goat to wolves in the night. These whispers weave through the fields like threads of connection, fragile but vital. You listen, sometimes joining in, sometimes silent, and you realize that these murmurs are as necessary as bread. They tether you to one another, reminding you that you are not alone in your struggle, that each bent back belongs to a soul carrying fears and hopes not unlike your own. The sun tilts further, shadows lengthening, though the work does not ease. Each furrow must be finished, each row tended, each weed pulled before the day can truly end. Your body screams for rest, but rest is not yet permitted. So you press on, the rhythm slower now, less precise, but still unbroken. You glance at the horizon, where the sky begins to shift toward gold, and you feel the faint stir of relief. Evening is coming, food is coming, the day's grip is loosening, if only by inches. And yet, as you continue, you also feel the weight of repetition pressing into your chest. Today is not unique. Tomorrow will be the same. The next day, and the next, until the seasons shift, until the harvest comes, until the snow falls, until you are buried in the same earth you now till. You feel this truth like a stone in your pocket, always present, always heavy. And still, you lift your hoe, you bend your back, you press your hands into the soil. Because what else is there to do? The sun lowers at last, its golden edge sliding slowly into the embrace of the horizon, and the fields, which have consumed you since dawn, release their hold reluctantly, as though unwilling to surrender their captives to rest. Shadows lengthen, stretching across the furrows like dark fingers, and the air begins to cool, carrying with it the smell of damp earth, of trampled grass, of smoke rising once more from village chimneys. You straighten your back, though it protests, and gather your tools, their weight heavier than when you first lifted them, not because the wood has changed, but because the hours have pressed themselves into your muscles. Around you, others do the same, the quiet murmur of voices rising as bent bodies slowly unfurl into weary shapes. The day has not been kind, but it is ending, and that is enough. The walk back to the village is slow, your boots heavy with mud, your steps dragging as though each one must be coaxed from the ground. The path is narrow, worn by generations of feet, its edges lined with weeds and wildflowers that glow faintly in the fading light. Children run ahead, their energy seemingly endless despite the labor they, too, have shared. Their laughter rings through the dusk, high and thin, like the last birds calling before night. You watch them and feel both envy and tenderness, for they carry a resilience you have long since surrendered, and yet you know their joy is fleeting. Hunger will find them, as it finds you, and their laughter will fade into the same sighs you release each evening. The huts appear, clustered close together, their thatched roofs glowing with the reflection of sunset. Smoke rises steadily from each, blending into a single haze that hovers over the village like a veil. The air is alive with sounds, the lowing of cattle being led to pens, the barking of dogs guarding their scraps, the creak of wooden wheels from a cart arriving late. Voices drift from doorways, some sharp with argument, others softened with song. It is a tapestry of survival, woven not from luxury, but from necessity, each sound a thread binding the community tighter. You step inside your own hut, and the change is immediate. The air is warmer, thicker with smoke and steam, the glow of the hearth casting its flickering light across the dirt floor. The children have already crowded near it, their faces orange in the firelight, their hands stretched out as though to catch the flames. The pot above the fire bubbles faintly, the scent of pottage filling the space. It is thin, as always, more water than substance, flavored by whatever scraps were gathered. Beans, barley, a shred of onion, perhaps a bone still clinging to memory of meat. Yet the smell alone is enough to make your stomach tighten with anticipation. You sit among your family, the bowl passed to you warm against your palms, and you eat, slowly, steadily, without words. The broth is salty, earthy, the bread coarse and hard, but together they quiet the growl within you. Each mouthful feels less like indulgence, and more like a negotiation with hunger, as though you are asking it politely to wait until tomorrow. Around you, others do the same. Their silence not heavy but companionable. The kind of silence that says, "We are all enduring, and we are all together." After the food, the fire becomes the center of your world. You sit close to it, the warmth seeping into your bones, easing the ache of the day, though not erasing it. Shadows dance on the walls, shifting with the flames, sometimes forming shapes that seem almost alive: faces, figures, reminders of stories told long ago. Someone begins to speak, their voice low, recounting a tale half remembered, perhaps of saints who worked miracles, perhaps of ancestors who defied death, perhaps of spirits that wander in the forest at night. The children listen wide-eyed, their hunger forgotten for the moment, their imaginations carried far beyond the hut. The adults listen too, though their faces remain weary, their thoughts caught between the story and the memory of fields waiting tomorrow. The evening is not without laughter. It rises softly, unexpectedly, when someone recalls a foolish moment, when a child stumbles through a prayer, when a neighbor visits and shares a bit of gossip. The laughter is brief, but it is real, and for a moment it feels like rebellion, as though in laughing you are defying the weight of toil itself. You cling to it, knowing it will not last, but grateful nonetheless. Outside, the village quiets gradually, the voices fading, the animals settling, the night drawing its curtain across the world. The church bell tolls once more, slower now, deeper, as if even its iron tongue is tired. Its sound rolls across the huts, a reminder that God, too, watches the night, that faith must stretch even into darkness. You cross yourself, murmur a prayer, though your words are half slurred with exhaustion. Faith here is less a matter of belief than of ritual, of habit, of clinging to something larger than yourself, in a world where so little is certain. The fire burns lower, the hut cooling once more, and bodies begin to fold into sleep. You lie on the straw, pulling the blanket over you, the smell of wool and smoke thick around your face. The children curl beside you, their warmth pressing into your side, their breathing uneven but steady. Your eyes close, but sleep does not come immediately. Instead, you lie in the half-light of embers, listening to the night creep in the rustle of a mouse in the corner, the shifting of a pig, the faint whistle of wind through the thatch. Each sound reminds you that the hut is fragile, that the world beyond its walls is vast and indifferent. Yet, within these walls, there is a kind of fragile safety, built not from strength, but from closeness. You think, as you drift, of the fields that will call you again tomorrow, of the steward's gaze, of the priest's prayers, of the hunger that never sleeps. You think too of the laughter by the fire, of the glint of dew on morning grass, of the woman with the basket who walked across the fields. You think of these things, and they blur together until they no longer seem separate but part of the same endless rhythm. And finally, when your body can resist no longer, you slip into sleep, the embers dimming, the night deepening, the world holding you in its weary embrace. The night deepens slowly, as if reluctant to surrender the last embers of day, and inside the hut you feel it settling not only over the village but into your very bones. The fire has burned low, its glow, a faint halo that flickers weakly against the timber walls, and every shadow has grown longer, heavier, until it seems the darkness itself has substance, pressing close, breathing against your skin. The hut is quiet, though not silent. The steady breathing of those around you rises and falls, a fragile chorus of endurance, while the animals shift occasionally in the straw, their presence a reminder that life clings together here, bound by warmth and necessity. You lie on your side, the coarse wool blanket scratching at your chin, your body still aching from the day. And though your eyes are closed, sleep does not claim you easily. For in the darkness, thoughts wander where daylight forbids. You think of the fields, endless and unyielding, stretching beyond sight, waiting for you again tomorrow. You think of hunger, that constant shadow, never banished, only quieted for a few hours. You think of death, because here death is never far, always lingering in coughs that do not fade, in fevers that burn too hot, in wounds that fester without healing. You wonder if tonight, in some other hut, a child is breathing his last while his mother prays to a God whose silence is as heavy as the night. You wonder if tomorrow, the bell will toll not for prayer but for burial. Such thoughts creep in, and you try to push them aside, murmuring a prayer yourself, your lips moving silently, words spilling not from certainty but from fear. The night outside carries its own voice. You hear the wind move through the thatch, a thin whistle that rises and falls like a ghostly song. You hear the distant howl of a wolf, its cry long and mournful, echoing across the fields. You hear the crack of branches in the forest, and though it may only be deer, your mind conjures bandits, spirits, demons. For in a world without lamps, without walls strong enough to hold back the unknown, the imagination fills the gaps. You clutch the blanket tighter, draw your body closer to those beside you, and remind yourself that fear itself cannot open the door. Still, you listen, because listening feels like a kind of vigilance, a fragile defense against whatever prowls in the dark. When sleep does come, it is not gentle. It arrives in fragments, pulling you into dreams that feel too vivid, too close to truth. You see yourself again in the fields, bending, lifting, striking, the rhythm unbroken, the soil endless. You see bread piled high, white and soft, just beyond your reach, always vanishing when your hands grasp. You see faces, your children, your neighbors, the steward, the priest, all watching, their eyes hollow, their mouths silent. You wake with a start, your heart pounding, your mouth dry, the fire now nothing but ash. For a moment, you do not know where you are. The dream lingers, heavier than reality, and you lie still until the breathing of those around you reminds you that you are here, that you are not alone, that the nightmare belongs only to the night. Time drags differently in the darkness. You cannot measure it, cannot mark its passing, and so you drift in and out, caught between waking and sleep, between fear and surrender. Sometimes you dream, sometimes you simply listen. Sometimes you whisper another prayer, though you cannot tell if God hears, or if He too is asleep. You imagine saints walking through the night, their hands glowing, their voices gentle, protecting the village while you lie helpless. You imagine angels perched on the roof, wings spread wide against wolves and thieves. Perhaps these are illusions, but illusions are softer than fear, and so you let them cradle you. In the deepest hour, when even the animals have gone still, when the fire has died completely, when the hut is colder than the fields outside, you sense the fragility of everything. The walls, the roof, your own body, all of it feels thin, temporary, one gust of wind or one stroke of fate away from collapse. You realize how small you are, how powerless, how much your survival depends not on strength but on the mercy of weather, of chance, of God. And yet, even in this awareness, you do not despair. For despair is a luxury, and peasants do not live by luxury. You simply endure, because endurance is all their island. At last, a faint shift begins. The darkness softens, the silence thins, the cold retreats slightly. Somewhere outside, a rooster crows, its voice cracked and raw, but insistent. You open your eyes, and through the gaps in the wall you see the first threads of gray. The night has passed. You have survived another vigil. You pull yourself upright, your body stiff, your head heavy, and you know what awaits. The fire must be lit again. The animals must be tended. The fields must be faced. Another day has begun, as endless and as necessary as all the days before. And though you are weary, though you are hungry, though you are afraid, you rise, because that is what it means to live here. You rise. The morning does not greet you gently, though it carries with it the faint promise of renewal. The light seeps into the hut with a gray softness, brushing across straw and wool, stirring the dust that floats lazily in the air. The fire has been coaxed back to life, its smoke curling upward in slow ribbons, and the smell of damp wool and earth still clings to everything. You rise stiffly, your body heavy from sleep that was never deep, and you feel the same ache settle into your shoulders, the same pull in your legs, the same hollow gnawing in your belly. Yet you rise, as always, because the village does not pause for your weariness. Outside, the world is damp with dew, each blade of grass sparkling faintly in the early sun. Though you do not think of beauty as you see it, you think of work. The animals greet you with their demands, the lowing of a cow, the insistent cluck of hens, the grunt of pigs hungry for scraps. You tend to them, not out of affection but out of necessity, your hands practiced, your movements steady, your mind already drifting toward the fields that await. The rhythm is unbroken. Feed, milk, scatter, gather, each act small, each act vital, each act a reminder that survival is not grand but granular, built one motion at a time. The bell tolls again, calling the village into its measured order, and you join the slow procession of figures moving toward the fields. Tools across shoulders, heads bowed against the morning chill, voices low, you walk together yet apart. Each soul bound to the same fate, yet carrying its own silence. The earth greets you again with its stubborn weight, and once more the rhythm begins. Bend, lift, strike, pull. The hours stretch ahead like an endless road, and you do not think of their length, for thinking would make them unbearable. You surrender instead to the movement, to the sound of iron-biting soil, to the smell of freshly turned earth rising like breath from the ground. Yet today, perhaps because the air carries a softness left by last night's rain, or perhaps because hunger sharpens your senses, you notice more of the life that hums at the edges of your labor. Birds wheel above, their wings glinting as they dive for worms unearthed by your plow. A hare darts across the field, quick as a shadow, disappearing into the hedge. Bees drift lazily among the wildflowers, their hum steady, almost soothing, reminding you that even here, in the grind of necessity, there are rhythms beyond your own. By midday, your body cries for rest, and when the bell allows it, you pause, sinking to the edge of the field. The bread you chew is hard, its crust sharp against your teeth, its taste more of husk than grain, but you eat it gratefully, dipping it into the thin ale that softens it. Around you, others do the same. The silence broken only by murmurs and the crunch of jaws. A man tells a story of wolves sighted near the forest. A woman mutters of a sick child who cannot shake his cough. A boy laughs too loudly at a joke whispered by another, only to fall silent when the steward's gaze sweeps past. These fragments of life thread through the pause, weaving the community tighter even as each soul carries its own burden. When work resumes, the sun climbs higher, burning the fields with its heat, and your body moves slower, though it does not stop. The soil clings to your boots, the blisters on your palms sting, the sweat stings your eyes, and still you bend, lift, strike, pull. This is not a story of triumph, not a tale of progress. It is endurance, quiet and relentless. And in that endurance lies the essence of peasant life. You are not building empires, not carving history into stone. You are keeping hunger at bay for another day, and in this world, that is enough. Later, when the sun tilts and the bell calls again, you return to the village, the tools heavier now, your steps slower, but your spirit faintly lifted by the thought of food, of fire, of the warmth of voices. The lanes are alive with movement. Women carrying baskets of herbs, men leading cattle, children chasing one another through the dust. The air smells of wood smoke and dung, of sweat and earth, of stew simmering in pots. It is not pleasant, not in the sense of sweetness, but it is alive, and that life carries you forward. Sometimes, on days such as this, when no feast marks the calendar and no plague has struck the huts, the village finds small moments of gathering. Perhaps at the well, where women pause to share stories as they draw water, their voices carrying softly across the square. Perhaps at the smith's forge, where men watch sparks fly as iron is hammered into tools, their talk weaving between gossip and silence. Perhaps even in the churchyard, where the priest offers words that half the people do not understand, but all nod to anyway. These gatherings are not planned, not celebrated, but they matter. They remind you that you are not alone, that your labor is mirrored by others, that your hunger echoes in other bellies. Community here is not luxury, it is survival in another form. And when night falls again, when the fire crackles in your hut, when the children huddle close and the bowl of pottage warms your hands, you feel the circle close once more. The day has been endured, and tomorrow will come, and you will endure again. Yet in that small circle, in the warmth of firelight and the rhythm of breath, there is a kind of peace, not the peace of ease, but the peace of belonging, of knowing that even in struggle, you are part of something that stretches beyond yourself. The days blur together, each one braided into the next, until you no longer think of them as separate, but as a single thread stretching endlessly through time. The rising of the bell, the bending of your back, the breaking of bread, the falling of night, all repeat, all return, all shape the rhythm of your existence. And yet, as the days pass, you begin to notice the slow turning of the seasons. Subtle at first, then undeniable. The air grows softer or sharper. The light lingers longer or vanishes too soon. The soil hardens or loosens or cracks. And in these changes, you are reminded that life is not only toil, but cycle, that the world itself breathes in long, slow patterns, and you are caught within its lungs. In spring, the fields burst with demand. The soil must be broken, seeds scattered, weeds pulled, furrows carved again and again. Your hands blister anew, your muscles strain, but there is no choice. For if spring is neglected, summer will mock you, and winter will kill you. The village hums with urgency, every body moving, every back bent, every prayer whispered toward the sky. Rain falls, sometimes too much, sometimes too little, and you read the clouds as though they were scripture. Your faith placed not only in God but in weather. At night, you sleep with the smell of damp earth still in your nose, the sound of rain still in your ears, your dreams tangled with furrows and seeds, and the silent plea for mercy. Summer brings both relief and cruelty. The fields rise green, stalks reaching toward the sun, and for a time there is the illusion of abundance. But the work does not ease. You weed, you water, you guard against pests. The sun beats down harder now, burning your skin, baking the soil into stubborn clay. Your throat is dry, your tunic soaked with sweat. And still you labor, for growth is fragile, and a single lapse could cost a season's survival. Yet, in summer evenings, when the air cools and the sky glows gold, the village sometimes gathers children running in the lanes, women singing softly, men drinking ale that is thin but warming. These moments are rare, but they are reminders. Even within the grind of necessity, the human heart searches for song. Autumn arrives with both dread and relief. The harvest must be taken, the grain cut and gathered, the barns filled. It is the climax of labor, the weeks when every hand, young and old, must work from dawn until dusk, when the village becomes a single body bent to one task. The air smells of cut stalks, of smoke from fires, burning chaff, of sweat and earth and hope. You work until your body trembles, until your fingers bleed, until your eyes blur, and still you keep going, because this is the season that will decide if you live through the winter. And when the barns are filled, when the last stalk is cut, when the final sheaf is stacked, you feel not joy, but exhaustion, not triumph, but reprieve. You have survived for now. The cycle turns again. Winter is the test. The fields lie barren, the soil frozen, the air biting at your skin. The days are shorter, the nights endless. You huddle by the fire, your breath misting even inside the hut, the wool blanket heavy but never warm enough. Food grows scarce. Bread is rationed, pottage thinned until it is more water than meal, and hunger becomes sharper, more insistent. Children cough, elders grow frail, and the bell tolls too often for burials. The village endures, but just barely, each family measuring each crumb, each ember, each prayer. You learn in winter how thin the thread of life truly is, how quickly it can fray, and yet, even in the cold, there are moments, the laughter of children playing in snow, the crackle of fire, the taste of broth after a day of hunger that remind you why you endure. Through these seasons, your body changes, though you barely notice. Your hands become harder, your back more stooped, your face carved by sun and wind and cold. Each line is a story, each scar a record of survival. You carry the history of the fields in your skin, the memory of labor in your bones. You are not the person you were when you first awoke in this world. You are something else now, something shaped, bent, but also strengthened by the rhythm you once resisted and now embody. Faith carries you, though you question it in secret. The priest's Latin words roll over you in the church, half understood, half ignored. But you bow your head nonetheless, because bowing is safer than questioning. You cross yourself before meals, murmur prayers at night, whisper the names of saints when fear presses close. Sometimes you wonder if God hears you, or if He, too, is indifferent, as the soil is indifferent, as the weather is indifferent. But then you look at your children sleeping, their faces softened by firelight, their breath warm against your skin. And you think, perhaps survival itself is answer enough. You notice, too, the weight of community. Neighbors who share scraps when sickness keeps you from the fields. Women who gather at the well, trading stories as they draw water. Men who repair each other's tools when the iron breaks. These bonds are not luxuries, they are lifelines. You endure together, fail together, survive together. And though gossip can wound, though quarrels flare, though envy sometimes festers, in the end the village stands as one body, bound not by choice but by necessity. Alone, you would perish. Together, you endure. And always, always the cycle continues. The bell tolls, the fields call, the bread is broken, the night descends. You are caught in it, carried by it, shaped by it, until you no longer resist. You learn to surrender, not with despair, but with the quiet acceptance that this is life. Not grand, not heroic, not remembered in chronicles or carved into stone, but real, tangible, necessary. As you lie again at night, the fire dimming, the blanket scratchy against your skin, the sounds of breath and animal rustle surrounding you, you realize that though your world is small, though your life is humble, though your struggles are endless, you are part of something vast. The soil that cuts your hands will outlast you. The bell that marks your days will toll long after you are gone. The children who sleep beside you will bend their backs as you have bent yours, and their children after them. And in this continuity, there is meaning, not the meaning of glory, but the meaning of endurance, of belonging, of life itself woven into the endless rhythm of the world. And so, my friend, as the long rhythm of a peasant's day fades once more into night, you find yourself lying again on the straw, the wool pulled high to your chin, the smoke curling above, the darkness pressing close, and you understand at last that life here is not a tale of great victories or sudden revelations, but of unbroken endurance, of one step placed after another across the unyielding earth. The morning fields, the midday hunger, the evening fire, the fragile dreams, all of them repeat, not in cruelty, but in inevitability, as steady as the toll of the bell, as constant as the seasons that turn whether you notice or not. And you, in waking as a medieval peasant, have felt the weight of this rhythm pressing down, shaping your body, your thoughts, your very soul until you cannot imagine yourself apart from it. There is a strange peace in this realization, for while the life is hard, unrelenting, even cruel, it is also clear, stripped of the noise that clutters modern days. You work, you eat, you pray, you sleep, you belong to the soil, to the village, to the cycle that holds everyone within its grasp. You are not alone, even in your suffering. Every cough, every blister, every gnaw of hunger is mirrored in the bodies around you. And in that shared struggle, there is a kind of belonging that no comfort could replace. You are one thread in a vast, rough cloth. And though you may fray, the cloth itself endures. As the fire dwindles to ash, you close your eyes and let yourself drift. And in that drifting, you imagine what it means to leave this world behind. You think of your own bed, soft and warm, free from smoke, free from hunger, safe from wolves and bandits, and the endless call of fields. You feel the contrast like a wave washing over you, and it humbles you. For while your world is brighter, fuller, more abundant, theirs was pared down to what mattered most: survival, faith, community, endurance. They carried their lives on their shoulders with no illusions of control, and perhaps there is wisdom in that surrender. The bell tolls in your memory, deep and steady, a sound that marked not only hours but existence itself, and you let it echo as you drift further, softer, closer to sleep. The faces of those peasants blur in your mind, the woman with the basket, the man with the ox, the child with dirt-streaked cheeks, and though their names are lost, though history does not remember them, you do for this moment. You carry them with you into your rest, and in that act, they are not forgotten. And as you lie there, listening to the hush between your breaths, let this thought settle gently. You have endured their day, but you do not have to endure their life. You can wake in your own bed, in your own time, with the knowledge that the darkness outside your window is not filled with wolves, that your hunger is not endless, that your tomorrow is not bound by the same relentless soil. And perhaps, in that knowledge, you can feel gratitude deeper than words. gratitude that carries you softly into dreams. So, my dear listener, as the voice of the past fades and the silence of the present wraps around you, let yourself rest. Let your eyes grow heavy, your body sink deeper, your mind release the weight of toil. Sleep now, with the comfort of knowing you are safe, with the warmth of knowing you are sheltered, with the peace of knowing you are free from the endless rhythm of fields and bells and hunger. Sleep, and let the peasants rest with you, their struggles folded into the quiet of your dreams. And when you wake tomorrow, if you wish to wander again into the forgotten lives of history, I will be here, waiting with another story, another journey, another gentle whisper through time. Until then, my friend, good night. Sleep well, sleep deeply, sleep peacefully.